Okay, welcome back to Marxisms. We're going to start this episode off with Governor of California, Gavin Newsom. And here he is.
I want to say a few words about the events of the last few days. This past weekend, federal agents conducted large-scale workplace raids in and around Los Angeles. Those raids continue as I speak. California is no stranger to immigration enforcement, but instead of focusing on undocumented immigrants with serious criminal records and people with final deportation orders, a strategy both parties have long supported, this administration is pushing mass deportations, indiscriminately targeting hardworking immigrant families, regardless of their roots or risk. What's happening right now is very different than anything we've seen before. On Saturday morning, when federal agents jumped out of an unmarked van near a Home Depot parking lot, they began grabbing people, a deliberate targeting of a heavily Latino suburb. A similar scene played out when a clothing company was raided downtown. In other actions, a U.S. citizen, 9 months pregnant, was arrested. A 4-year-old girl taken.
Pretty
Families
indiscriminate.
separated. Friends quite literally disappearing. In response, everyday Angelenos came out to exercise their constitutional right.
Okay, this is the problem. This is exactly what is going on in this country. They're not going after criminals in um, MS-13 and stuff like that. They're just going after anybody that's brown, anybody that looks like they're an illegal. They pull up to a Home Depot and they just start grabbing people. Well, they haven't vetted these people, and then they're doing sending them away without any kind of due process. If you're going to arrest people, if you're going to detain them, you need to have information, you need to have a warrant, and you need to go through the court system. This administration is just not doing that.
To free speech and assembly, to protest their government's actions. In turn, the state of California and the city and county of Los Angeles sent our police officers to help keep the peace. And with some exceptions, they were successful. Like many states,
And in fact, the first nights, the LAPD actually said they wanted to thank the protesters for being nonviolent. Yes, there's always going to be the bad actor that jumps in there and commits violence. Um, but the majority of people, contrary to what Carolyn Levitt says, I mean, that woman, I watched her news conference today, and she is a very adept liar. And it's interesting how she wears that cross on her necklace, um, claiming to be a Christian. She's no Christian, she's a liar. She sat there and said that Trump is against violent protests. He, I want to point out January 6th. I think Gavin does in this thing too. He pardoned a bunch of violent protesters. These are violent protesters who rioted at the Capitol against police officers and assaulted police officers, and they're now free on the streets. In fact, they're free to join ICE, according to the latest report. Anyway, back to Gav.
California is no stranger to this sort of unrest. We manage it regularly and with our own law enforcement. But this, again, was different. What then ensued was the use of tear gas, flashbang grenades, rubber bullets, federal agents detaining people and undermining their due process rights. Donald Trump, without consulting California law enforcement leaders, commandeered 2,000 of our state's National Guard members to deploy on our streets, illegally and for no reason. This brazen abuse of power by a sitting president inflamed a combustible situation, putting our people, our officers, and even our National Guard at risk. That's when the downward spiral began. He doubled down on his dangerous National Guard deployment by fanning the flames even harder. And the president, he did it on purpose. As the news spread throughout LA, anxiety
As I
for
said
family
yesterday.
and friends ramped up. Protests started again. By night, several dozen lawbreakers became violent and destructive. They vandalized property. They tried to assault police officers. Many of you have seen the video clips of cars burning on cable news. If you incite violence, I want to be clear about this. If you incite violence or destroy our communities, you're going to be held to account. That kind of criminal behavior will not be tolerated. Full stop. Already more than 220 people have been arrested, and we're reviewing tapes to build additional cases, and people will be prosecuted.
Like I said, we don't need to bring the violence. When we go out and protest, we need to be peaceful and respectful. Um, the the thugs in the U.S. government and certain police departments, they'll bring the violence. Don't worry, you watch.
To the fullest extent of the law. Again, thanks to our law enforcement officers and the majority of Angelenos who protested peacefully, the situation was winding down and was concentrated in just a few square blocks downtown. But that's not what Donald Trump wanted. He again chose escalation. He chose more force. He chose theatrics.
And in fact, today he went out there and said that, LA was going to be completely destroyed. LA was burning. There was riots everywhere. Just like they said with Portland, it's not true. There was a couple of blocks. They had protests that took place in certain areas. I watched live video of the protests the other day. They were peaceful. They became non-peaceful when the police came and started shooting rubber bullets and lobbing flashbang grenades. The police will bring the violence. Trump is bringing the violence, not the protesters.
Over public safety. He federalized another 2,000 Guard members. He deployed more than 700 active U.S. Marines. These are the men and women trained for foreign combat, not domestic law enforcement.
It's also illegal.
We honor their service. We honor their bravery. But we do not want our streets militarized by our own armed forces, not in LA, not in California, not anywhere. We're seeing unmarked cars in school parking lots, kids afraid of attending their own graduation. Trump is pulling a military dragnet all across Los Angeles, well beyond his stated intent to just go after violent and serious criminals. His agents are arresting dishwashers, gardeners, day laborers, and seamstresses. That's just weakness masquerading as strength. Donald Trump's government isn't protecting our communities.
Trump's a coward.
They're traumatizing our communities. And that seems to be the entire point. California will keep fighting. We'll keep fighting on behalf of our people, all of our people, including in the courts. Just yesterday, we filed a legal challenge to Donald Trump's reckless deployment of American troops to a major American city. Today, we sought an emergency court order to stop the use of the American military to engage in law enforcement activities across Los Angeles.
Good.
If some of us could be snatched off the streets without a warrant, based only on suspicion or skin color, then none of us are safe. Authoritarian regimes begin by targeting people who are least able to defend themselves, but they do not stop there. Trump and his loyalists, they thrive on division because it allows them to take more power and exert even more control. And by the way, Trump, he's not opposed to lawlessness and violence as long as it serves him. What more evidence do we need than January 6th? I ask everyone, take time, reflect on this perilous moment. A president who wants to be bound by no law or constitution, perpetuating a unified assault on American traditions. This is a president who in just over 140 days has fired government watchdogs that could hold him accountable for corruption and fraud. He's declared a war on culture, on history, on science, on knowledge itself. Databases, quite literally, are vanishing. He's delegitimizing news organizations, and he's assaulting the First Amendment. And the threat of defunding them, at threat, he's dictating what universities themselves can teach. He's targeting law firms and the judicial branch that are the foundations of an orderly and civil society. He's calling for a sitting governor to be arrested for no other reason than to, in his own words, for getting elected. And we all know this Saturday, he's ordering our American heroes, the United States military, and forcing them to put on a vulgar display to celebrate his birthday, just as other failed dictators have done in the past. Look, this isn't just about protests here in Los Angeles. When Donald Trump sought blanket authority to commandeer the National Guard, he made that order apply to every state in this nation. This is about all of us. This is about you. California may be first, but it clearly will not end here. Other states are next. Democracy is next. Democracy is under assault before our eyes. This moment we have feared has arrived. He's taking a wrecking ball to our founding fathers' historic project. 3 co-equal branches of independent government. There are no longer any checks and balances. Congress is nowhere to be found. Speaker Johnson has completely abdicated that responsibility. The rule of law has increasingly been given way to the rule of Don. The founding fathers, they didn't live and die to see this kind of moment. It's time for all of us to stand up. Justice Brandeis, he said it best. In a democracy, the most important office, with all due respect, Mr. President, is not the presidency, and it's certainly not governor. The most important office is office of citizen. At this moment,
And frankly, that's all we have now because Congress and the Supreme Court are already lost. So it is up to the people. He's right.
at this moment, we all need to stand up and be held to account, a higher level of accountability. If you exercise your First Amendment rights, please do it peacefully.
Yep.
I know many of you are feeling deep anxiety, stress, and fear, but I want you to know that you are the antidote to that fear and that anxiety. What Donald Trump wants most is your fealty, your silence to be complicit in this moment. Do not give in to him.
Yep. Gavin is absolutely right. That is exactly how you create a dictator, is by capitulating. Congress is already doing it.
Do you feel a different person when you're playing the
Okay,
piano?
why is
when
this
you're
on
singing?
here still?
When I play
Okay, that's gone. All right. Yeah, the only reason Hitler was able to gain traction in Germany was because of the fact that he was out there running down Jewish people, and the majority of Germans were very anti-Semitic, and then that kind of, he tells them what they want to hear. This is what this guy has done, and unfortunately, a lot of Americans are pretty racist, and they've been sold this bill of goods that, and I hear it all the time. I see the um, guys on X and Facebook and whatever, and they're going, "Well, we got to have voter ID," and we talked about this in the last video. You do not need to have voter ID to go vote. When you register to vote, the registrar of voters, they vet your registration, and then they reject it when you're not legal or you're a felon or whatever the rules of that state happen to be. Now, some states felons can vote, and then it's legit. But and the same is true with benefits. It's another lie they keep telling you. They're not getting benefits. Americans prosper and are on immigration, legal and illegal. I personally want to see who's coming into the country, and I want them vetted. And I want to have worker programs, because we used to have those in this country, and they actually worked out pretty well. And let's pay them a decent wage, and then let's know who they are. See, we don't have any of those programs. We've created this situation, and then I can't tell you how many people I've known that are Republicans that um, they hire these guys, and then they turn around all hypocritically and they hate them. It makes no sense to me. When I was doing my yard, I was remodeling a house, and I remodeled, did all the landscaping stuff. I'd have guys stop their car, say, "I work for you," and I go, "No, you don't. I work for myself. I'll do it myself." Now, I guess everybody can't do that. I know I'm getting a little older now; it's getting a little harder too. And hire somebody and pay them a decent wage. I don't have a problem with that. We are not going after criminal illegal aliens. We are going after just regular people that want a better life. And I am all for going after the MS 13 members and other gang members and stuff like that, and criminals, violent criminals and stuff. But the majority of them just aren't. And you know, Carol Levitt in her Carolyn Levitt or whatever the hell her name is, the spoke slut for Trump. She gets up there. She's the most adept liar I've ever seen. Next to him, she gets up there and she's saying that, oh well, the majority of them were violent. It's like the majority of them were not violent. There was a few that were. It's just like with these protests and stuff. It's just unbelievable. But Gavin's right. I said it in the last video. It's up to the American people because Congress is just they're weak. They're weak and spineless. The Democrats don't seem to be getting much traction. I know they don't have a majority, but the Republicans are just ridiculous. There's a couple of them that have stood up to this, and but very few, not enough. Not not they're not Republicans. Not what I know as a Republican. Um, I don't know. I just don't even know what to say about this situation anymore. But this Saturday, June 14th, there are no king rallies all over the country. Every major city is having them. You need to find out where they are, and we need to show up in mass. And we need to do it peacefully. We do not need to give him any in his liars, like the spokes slut, any more fodder, and so that they can sit there and lie and say, "Oh, they were violent protesters, violent rioters." They were not violent rioters. It is ICE that started the riots. It's the police that started the riots. It's him bringing in the National Guard that escalated it, as well as the Marines. It's just utterly ridiculous. He is escalating something that would have easy or was already, as Newsom said, and it's true, they were already winding down until he decided to escalate. He is making this an emergency so that out of thin air, so that he could get further control of the people of this country and our freedoms. He wants to be a dictator. That is all he's doing. He is just setting himself up as an authoritarian thug that he is. And we need to get out there and peacefully protest this. We need to be in the millions, and it probably will be. I looked at the map, and there's literally in every state there's a protest. So go look it up. Indivisible.org is a good place to look for your local chapter and get involved. It's up to us. We need to do this, but do it peacefully. We don't want any. We don't want to give them any more fodder. Anyway, peace out.